Micah Parsons has torn his ACL. Christian Watson left the Broncos game in an ambulance. 6 other Packers injured in a single game. What was supposed to be a Super Bowl season is now a nightmare. The 2025 Green Bay Packers season isn't just derailed, it's over. And I'm going to show you exactly why. 3 weeks ago, the Packers weren't just in the race. They were Super Bowl contenders, 9-4-1. Micah Parsons terrorizing quarterbacks. Jordan Love slinging it like an MVP candidate. Green Bay was that team. And then week 15 happened, the Broncos game, and everything fell apart in one catastrophic second half. So let's break down exactly what went wrong, what it means for this season, and whether there's any hope left for the Packers in 2025. Let's rewind to the first half of that Broncos game for a second, because if you turned off your TV at halftime, you thought the Packers were about to blow Denver out of the stadium. Josh Jacobs was cooking. Jordan Love threw for the most yards in a half of any game in his entire career, against the number 1 defense in the NFL, by the way. This looked like a legacy performance. This looked like a team that was about to steamroll through the playoffs. Sure, the secondary was getting a little fried. The corners looked undisciplined, but Green Bay was UP. They were dominant. At halftime, it genuinely looked like this team could win the Super Bowl. 12 minutes and 49 seconds into the second half. That's when the play happened that started the most catastrophic second half collapse in Green Bay Packers history. Christian Watson goes down, chest injury. He's being loaded into an ambulance. Nobody knows if he's okay. The entire sideline is shaken. Zach Tom, the right tackle, leaves the game with a knee injury. Evan Williams is banged up. Multiple other guys are hobbling off the field. And then the news that broke every Packers fan's heart, Micah Parsons, torn ACL, out for the season. Let me say that again because it still doesn't feel real. The best defender the Packers have had in years. The guy who was supposed to carry them through January. The dude with 12.5 sacks and game-changing ability on every single snap, gone, done for the year. And look, thankfully, Christian Watson flew home with the team and was released from the hospital. Thank God. But the damage was done. 6 injuries in one game. The foundation of this team cracked in real time. Here's the thing. The Broncos game wasn't just bad luck. It was the culmination of a season-long injury crisis that's been building for weeks. Let me run through the carnage. Tucker Kraft, the breakout tight end star, torn ACL earlier in the season. IR. Devontae Wyatt, fractured ankle, out. Elgton Jenkins, the anchor of the offensive line, lower leg fracture earlier this season, sidelined. Zach Tom, knee injury from the Broncos game, questionable. Evan Williams, Josh Weil, and multiple other guys, banged up or limited. And Christian Watson, who just came back from a torn ACL earlier this year, goes down again with a chest injury. This isn't one injury. This isn't 2 injuries. This is a tidal wave of attrition that's drowning this roster. The Packers aren't adjusting to adversity anymore. They're boarding up a sinking ship and hoping they make it to shore. Let me be very clear about something. Micah Parsons wasn't just another defender. He was the defensive MVP level force on this team. He was the guy altering game plans across the entire league. Offensive coordinators had to scheme around him. Double teams, chip blocks, quick passes, everything. 12.5 sacks, constant pressure, a disruptive force on every single down. He was the keystone of Green Bay's defense, and when you lose your keystone, the whole thing crumbles. The Packers' pass rush went from elite to borderline average overnight. And in the playoffs, you can't hide average. There are no next men up in January. There are elite difference makers and competent professionals. Parsons was elite. Now he's gone. Jordan Love himself called it a tough blow. And when your franchise quarterback is using phrases like that with 3 games left, that's not stay positive energy, that's survival mode. Here's what's crazy. 3 weeks ago, analysts were projecting the Packers as a legitimate Super Bowl threat. Odds makers had them in the top tier of NFC contenders. The media was hyping up Jordan Love as an MVP dark horse. Everything was trending up. After the Broncos' loss, writers are now openly saying it's time to erase expectations for 2025 and hope for a pleasant surprise. That's the language you use for teams that are already out of contention. That's rebuild talk. That's let's focus on next year energy. Green Bay's Super Bowl odds, they plummeted. Not a small dip, a free fall. The betting world is telling us what everyone feels. The ceiling on this season just collapsed. The Packers went from contenders to survivors. And the worst part, the Chicago Bears are nipping at their heels in the division. Detroit is rolling. Minnesota is dangerous. The Packers aren't just fighting for playoff positioning anymore. They're fighting to stay relevant. So let's address the elephant in the room. Is the season actually over mathematically? No. The Packers could still sneak into the playoffs with a couple wins. The NFC can get weird in late December. Crazier things have happened. But realistically, from a roster health, performance, and matchup perspective, yes. This season is effectively done, because here's the difference. The Packers aren't a team fighting to win anymore. They're a team fighting not to lose. And that mentality shift is everything. Contending teams overcome adversity and still close strong. Teams whose identity fractures under pressure fold into league average mediocrity. After the Broncos' loss, multiple analysts view the Packers as the second category, not because they lack talent, but because they lack the depth and health to compete at the highest level. So yes, Green Bay might make the playoffs, but a deep run, a Super Bowl appearance, at this point, it's almost certainly not happening. And that's not pessimism, that's reality. Look, I know this video is tough to hear. Trust me, it was tough to make because everyone believed this was Green Bay's year. Everyone thought adding Parsons would be the piece that put them over the top. And for a few weeks, it felt like that was right. But the NFL is brutal. Margins are razor thin. And sometimes a season can change in 3 quarters of football. That's what happened to the Packers. So what comes next? The team rallies. They finish the season with pride. They give Jordan Love and the guys still healthy a chance to compete. And then they regroup for 2026. Because the good news is this core is young. Jordan Love is a franchise quarterback. The Packers have pieces to build around. This isn't a teardown, it's a reset. And if they can get healthy next season, they'll be right back in the conversation. But for 2025, the dream is over. And it's okay to admit that. It's okay for fans to be heartbroken because everyone is. Let me know in the comments how you're feeling about this season. Are you still holding out hope, or do you think it's time to look ahead to 2026? And hey, if you made it this far, smash that like button and subscribe if you haven't already.